But we begin tonight with something sort of weird happening in politics. Today, Democrats started to campaign. Today, Democrats started to campaign to apparently try to win this year's elections. Politics broke out among Democrats. They started campaigning on the basis of the concrete things they have been doing since they've been in power in Washington to try to make stuff better for people across the country. Democrats did. Campaigning on good stuff they've done. I know, right? Apparently, they have not forgotten how to do this. Here's what it looks like when Democrats go on the offense and try to win.
If we hand the other side the keys, they've promised to spend the next 2 years chipping away at the new rules we put in place for special interests. And I refuse to let them do that. I refuse to go back to the days when insurance companies could deny you coverage or drop your coverage just because you're sick. Over the last 19 months, we passed a new college tax credit worth $10,000 in tuition relief for each child going to 4 years of college. We want to make that permanent, too, because in good times or bad, no family should have to stop investing in their children's future. That's what we believe. That's what we stand for as Democrats. Those are our priorities. That's the choice in this election.
That is the choice in this election. President Obama speaking in New York City tonight, just a couple of hours ago, addressing the Democratic campaign committees for both the House and the Senate. That event preceded today by another presidential campaign event on something that Democrats have inexplicably not been campaigning on before now. Today, the White House rolled out its political campaign on behalf of health reform, and they rolled it out in a big way. President Obama traveled to Falls Church, Virginia, to speak at one of these private home backyard events that he's been doing lately to connect with a relatively small audience. This one in Virginia today specifically zeroed in on what is happening roughly 3 hours from right now, which is that a big wave of changes is rolling into effect as a result of health reform being signed into law. Those changes take effect at midnight.
Part of the Affordable Care Act that we can implement right now that will take effect tomorrow is the most important patient's Bill of Rights that we've ever seen in our history. Number one, Paul already mentioned, the issue of lifetime limits. That is not going to be the rule anymore after tomorrow. Number two, pre-existing conditions for children. Children who have pre-existing conditions are going to be covered. Number three, we're going to make sure that if young people don't have health insurance through their employer, that they can stay on their parents' health insurance up to the age of 26. You're going to be able to make sure that the insurance company doesn't drop you because of an innocent mistake on your insurance form. All these things are designed not to have government more involved in health care. They're designed to make sure that you have basic protections in your interactions with your insurance company, that you're getting what you paid for.
Back when health reform passed about 6 months ago, we did a segment on this show saying, mark your calendars, September 23rd is going to be a big day. All of those things that President Obama just mentioned in that speech today, they go into effect tomorrow. No more lifetime limits. You can be on your parents' insurance till you're 26. That stuff is happening. That stuff goes into effect tomorrow. America changes. Health insurance sucks less than it does now, starting tomorrow, because Democrats passed health reform. And until today, that was essentially trivia. That was essentially something that you could look up if you were interested in health policy or taking a class on it, or if you were researching maybe your own family's health insurance options or health insurance options for your own business. Until today, this was policy. This was something to look up and try to understand. Before today, this was not politics. Before today, Democrats were refusing to campaign on this major advance they've made toward improving what is a significant source of anguish and economic pain in this country. As of tomorrow, as of less than 3 hours from now, all of those things President Obama rattled off today will be law of the land. And so now the White House is finally starting to convert some of that policy into politics, into an electoral benefit for the Democratic Party. One of the changes that went into effect already was the setting up of high-risk pools across the country, so people with pre-existing conditions could still get someone to insure them. Today, the White House made that change politically manifest, made it evident, put a face on what that means, so it is not an argument anymore about policy, about some abstract or academic thing, but about people's lives getting measurably better. On the new website the White House just launched to publicize the changes in health reform, they highlighted the story of Gail O'Brien, a woman from Keene, New Hampshire.
We're pretty healthy people, you know. We work out, we eat right, you do all the right things, you know, and something like that's not in the family at all. So that was the last thing from our mind.
My doctor had said to me when I was diagnosed with cancer, it's either going to be you're going to have to go into your retirement fund or you're going to die. Those are your choices. When that was signed, I mean, that just changed my life completely, because then I knew I could get the treatments and I would be okay. I have an appointment, I go and I feel good. I know I'm getting treated.
Can Gail get that?
I'll get it. Ah. Hello? Yep, this is her.
Hi, I have the president on the line to speak with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second. I'm just with the president.
Thank you. President Obama.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Gail.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing really well.
Thank you. This is an honor. I want to thank you so much, because if it wasn't for you, I probably wouldn't be here right now.
Well,
and that's from the bottom of my heart.
Well, look, it means so much.
It's still a battle that you're fighting, but now you've got some allies on your side, and you don't have to spend all your time worrying about paying the bills.
This from the White House, this video from the White House, this is on the splash page that starts running when you go to the White House website on health reform. This is putting a human face on this issue. Republicans have been running against health reform essentially all year long. And Democrats, even though Democrats passed it, never before now took a victory lap about it, about what health reform meant, about what it actually accomplished. Well, now, as the first big wave of changes associated with the law are about to go into effect, Democrats are finally taking their victory lap, and they are doing it with retail politics, making people connect to not the policy, the abstract idea, but to people's lives getting better because of the policy, because their government did something good for them, like sending seniors checks to close the so-called donut hole in Medicare so older Americans could afford their medications.
A couple of million seniors have already received, or is it about 1.5 million seniors have already received checks of $250.
I was able to get my heart medication once that check got there.
Well, so you've already received it, and it helped you get some heart medication.
Medicine I couldn't afford.
Well, that's a wonderful story, and that's exactly what we want to make sure of, is that you don't have to make decisions about, do I get this medication or not?
And I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Well, I appreciate that.
It may end up being a day late. It may end up being $1 short. But Democrats, at least the White House, seem today to be actively trying to win the elections, actively campaigning. The president helping to try to build political capital out of the constructive legacy of what they've done in terms of policy. And the vice president, Joe Biden, continuing with something we talked to him about last week, trying to make the election not just a referendum on how people feel the country is going, but rather a choice between the Democrats and something else, between the Democrats and the Republicans, which this year means a very specific thing. In Joe Biden's terminology, they are, this year, the Republican Tea Party. That's what he called them Monday night in Ohio. That's what he's been calling them a lot lately.
Ask yourself, what alternative has been offered? What alternative has been offered?
There's a choice for Americans in this election, and it's not between Democrats and the Almighty. It's between Democrats and the Republican Tea Party. This ain't your father's Republican Party. This is the Republican Tea Party. This is the Republican Tea Party.
Now, as just a sample of how crazy it is that Democrats are doing this. How crazy it is that politics has broken out among Democrats in advance of an election. Consider this. Consider the reaction among Beltway Democrats today to somebody like Joe Biden actually getting out there and throwing punches to try to define the opposition in advance of people going out to vote. Today, Democratic Senator Ben Nelson of Nebraska was quoted terrified and quaking that the vice president might alienate some people by using that phrase, the Republican Tea Party. Senator Nelson told Roll Call newspaper, quote, "I think there are some fine people who are concerned about the size and growth of government. What we ought to do is have a dialogue." Such a perfect example of Democratic Beltway unilateral surrender. This is an election in which the Republican Party's choices for U.S. Senate have been beaten, 7 times now by Tea Party-supported candidates. And as exciting as that might be to the Tea Party folks, to a broad section of America, that's radical and telling and a clear, sharp distinction with a capital D between the two parties. One that will make them more comfortable and, frankly, more enthused about voting for the Democrats, not the Republican Tea Party. So Ben Nelson says we mustn't mention it. For most of my adult life, Democrats have been afraid of their own shadow when it comes to campaigning. At least today, the White House, president and vice, do not seem to be afraid to campaign to try to win this election. Can the rest of the Democratic Party swallow their fear and actually try to win, too? Stay with us.